Brad Sugar shares with us some amazing tips. He just has this way of making business simple, things simple, simplifying business. And he's got this amazing saying, business doesn't get easier, we just get better at business. Leadership doesn't get easier, we just get better with leadership.
You got to keep learning and growing. If you keep learning and growing, the business will keep growing. You've got to be the one to do the first level of growth. Don't complain about the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do. And that work means you.
And learning is the theme of today's episode. Why business coaching?
What happened was I was running my own businesses and I was very young. I was 20 or 21 and I was doing speaking. Robert Kiyosaki put me on stage, Stan and Jane Jordan in Melbourne, Australia, Gary and Lucy, and all these people wanted me to be on stage talking about how I'd succeeded young. And people would come up to me at the end and say, can you consult with us? Can you help us? And maybe I'm a bit of a slow learner, but it took about 30 or 40 of them asking me to finally go, well, look, why don't you just call me every week and I'll try and coach you through this stuff? And that was sort of my response. And eventually it was like, okay, if people want this, let's actually deliver what the market wants. If you keep selling coffee and everyone asks, do you have tea? Do you have tea? You should probably be selling tea. So I started coaching. Really, the reason I started coaching rather than consulting is I just didn't have time. And so I said, I can give you maybe half an hour a week if you call me. And that's sort of how it began. And now it's, here we are 31 years later, about 280,000 people we've coached, 2.5 billion in revenues and about 18,000 one-on-one clients now and more than 100,000 in our training programs at the moment. So in 84 countries since we just opened in Oman. So that's kind of cool. And, thousands plus partners and thousands of team members around the world because people were persistent and kept asking me, will you help? And yeah, here we are today.
And how clear were you on that vision back then? Did you ever see that it would have got as big as what it is today?
When I first started, I was just doing speaking. And so I just people wanted me to speak. And so I spent it and I almost got burned out by doing this because I was doing about 200 events a year, 2 years in a row. So that was 200 flights, 200 hotel room nights, etc. And it just got to that point of, okay, this is just crazy. And so I was in Auckland, New Zealand, and I remember I was at a hotel across from the Rose Garden and I sat down and wrote the vision for Action Coach of World Abundance because I thought, if I'm going to work this hard, I've actually got to do this as a business, not just me. And so I had to get away from it being just something that was dependent upon me into an organization that had a vision and a mission and all of those sorts of things so it could develop its own identity and become its own self and not just be Brad on stage sort of thing. And the great thing about teaching is that you have to organize your thoughts to be able to teach it. So in order to do that, I had to develop systems and therefore the simplification of all of the models. And that's why Action Coach, our ABOS system, the Action Coach Business Operating System, is a model of how you build a business. It goes through the mastery and the niche and, all the different aspects of how ABOS is installed in a business started back then because I had to organize my thinking of, well, how do I do that? How does that actually work? How do I get that done? And was I 100% clear? Not for the first year and a half or 2 years, I don't think. I think after that, I got clarity around what I wanted to build, that if I was going to build it, I might as well build it in every country in the world. Well, subsequently, I went back and researched McDonald's was in 119 countries, so my goal is 120. So got to beat the old Maccas.
Talk to me about people, building yourself as a leader, and why is it as important as building the business, and where does that come in?
The funny side of me would say, well, Michelle, the business can only grow to the owner's level of incompetence. Once you run out of knowledge and ideas, the business runs out of growth, and a business that's isn't growing is dying. But the more serious side of that is there is a very high level of pressure on a business owner, on a CEO, on an executive, and there's very few places they can go to talk about that pressure. Having a coach, a friend, a mentor, a person that they can go to is, in some cases, not just important, it's life-saving. I know I've coached through that before, and I know many other of our team members and partners around the world have coached through that sort of stuff. Growing people in this world, we live in possibly the most connected time we've ever lived and also possibly the loneliest time we've ever lived in. I had Charles Vogel on my podcast the other day talking about loneliness and how that's become a reality out there in the world. And I think that we as human beings, you ever seen that meme where someone goes back to their high school reunion and they go, "Oh, you've changed," and they go, "Oh, you haven't." It's like, aren't we supposed to? The tree doesn't stop growing, nor should the human being. And so our growth, and this is where someone asked me the other day about it, was I ever certain that Action Coach would achieve what I'd set out as a goal? And I said, I was certain that I was willing to learn and grow. I was certain that I was willing to work hard. I was certain that I could build a team. I was certain of those things. Was I certain that we would get there? I don't know. But the only thing that is the difference between a business that is growing and a business that is going backwards is the growth of the humans in the business. You don't build your business, your people do. If you build your people, they build your business. Yes, you got to build systems. Yes, you got to build brand. But who's better to build the systems? Someone who's great at systems. And that's not me. Okay, I'll put my hand up on that. Who's better to build do you know what I mean? Like, if you build a great team, if you build great people, then they build a great business. I think we get too busy thinking we got to do it all ourselves. And I had to learn it early on that saving a wage costs a fortune. Every time I try and save a wage and just do it myself, I take myself away from doing the things that make the most impact. And I'm doing things that are just saving money for the business type thing. When I stopped doing that and I said, okay, I'm going to stop doing any of this stuff. I'm just going to be on the phone over here making sales. It doubled the business because I stopped doing the stupid stuff, Have to learn it all. We all have to learn it at some point, I guess. And my biggest lesson was learning to let go and trust people to do the work. That was my biggest emotional shift I had to go through to achieve success.
Best piece of advice you ever received?
3 things Jim Rohn said. Number 1, never wish your life were easier, wish that you were better. Number 2, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And number 3, read a book a week for the rest of your life. All 3 of them, E. James Rohn.
If you could give one piece of advice to every business owner or leader listening, what would that be?
The facetious answer, raise your prices. You're too cheap. The other one, you got to keep learning and growing. If you keep learning and growing, the business will keep growing. So you've got to be the one to do the first level of growth. Don't complain about the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do. And that work means you working on you, as Jim said.
Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.